Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the big ideas.
All right, let's just jump right in with the question. And it's one I think a lot of us can relate to. Think back to when you were a kid. Weren't you just bursting with questions about, well, everything? The source material we're digging into today suggests that somewhere along the line, our education system can kind of put a lid on that natural curiosity.
And this right here, this really nails the core of the problem. You've got your traditional teaching on one side, which is all about memorizing facts, the finished product. But then on the other side, you have this research-based approach. It's not just about the what, it's about the how. How did we figure this stuff out in the first place? It's the difference between being told what to think versus learning how to think. And that's the shift we're talking about today.
Okay, so what is the actual problem here? Well, according to the source material, we're looking at a serious crisis in the classroom, a crisis of engagement, and it seems to be hitting the sciences particularly hard.
I love this analogy because it just sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? It's like being handed this massive cookbook, but no one ever actually teaches you the techniques of cooking. You get all the facts, all the finished recipes, but none of the context, none of the story of discovery. It's all what and no how. And that, right there, is where you start to lose people.
And this isn't just a small issue. It has some pretty serious consequences. We're talking a real downward spiral. Universities are seeing fewer and fewer people applying for science degrees. And the students who do graduate, a lot of them are just not prepared, or honestly, not even that interested in doing master's-level research. It creates this vicious cycle, Even professors who are doing amazing research struggle to bring students into that world because the whole system is set up to reward memorizing facts, not understanding the process. Okay, so enough about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. And it's an idea called research-based teaching and learning. You'll see it as RBT and RBTL. Now, what's fascinating is that this isn't some brand new radical idea. It's actually been around for decades. But for a whole bunch of reasons, it just hasn't really caught on in a big way.
So what exactly is research-based teaching? At its core, it's about flipping the script. It's about treating the whole process of learning like a research project. The point isn't just to have students learn about research from a textbook. The point is for them to learn through the act of doing research. It's about turning them from, passive listeners into active investigators.
This table is actually super helpful for understanding the different levels here. You can see how a student's role changes, right? You start at the top, where you're basically just an audience for research findings. But as you move down, you become more of a participant. And that bottom row, research-based, that's the goal. That's where the student is an active participant in both the content and the process. That's the sweet spot, the gold standard we're aiming for.
All right, so this all sounds great in theory. But what does it actually look like in practice? Let's get our hands dirty and look at a real-world example, a pretty cool project from the world of chemistry that's doing exactly this.
And yeah, this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. We learn by example, right? It's how we're wired. We learn from stories, from seeing how things are really done out in the world. And that simple but really powerful insight, that's the entire foundation of this Polytechnic Chemistry project.
So here's the game plan. Step 1. Forget about memorizing the whole textbook. That's out. Instead, students pick just a few real-world chemical processes, things that are actually used in industry. Step 2. They become historians. They dig into the history of how these things were discovered. And then, Step 3, they become modern researchers, exploring what's happening with these processes right now, today. It's all about depth over breadth.
And what this does is it makes learning relevant. It's not just a bunch of abstract formulas on a page anymore. Suddenly, you're constantly asking why and how. It forces you to think critically. And that's the magic trick, right? It turns students from just passive listeners into active partners in this whole journey of science.
But, a revolutionary new teaching model is great, but it can't exist in a vacuum. To really make it work, especially now, you need to build a whole support system around it, a modern toolkit, if you will. And here are some of those key pieces. You've got projects like WTIM, which is this fast-track program focused on water treatment chemistry, a super practical way to get this model up and running. Then there are computer simulations. This is huge, because real research can take months or years. You can't just cram that into a 2-hour lab. Simulations let you model that whole process. And finally, and this is really cool, a new kind of scientific journal, one that's designed to make actual research accessible to students, teachers, even hobbyists.
Okay, so all of this is building towards something, a much bigger vision.
Because this project, this whole idea, it's not just about changing a chemistry class. It's about using that class as a test case for a much bigger idea. Creating a culture where we all keep asking questions for our entire lives.
And they have a name for this vision: total science. The idea is pretty simple but profound. You know that natural curiosity we all have as kids? The goal of total science is to make sure that doesn't just fade away. It's about fundamentally rewiring our relationship with learning so that it's not something that ends when you graduate. It's just a part of who you are for life.
So how do you actually do that? Well, the proposal is to build a community around it. They call it the Academy of Total Science, and you can think of it like a massive international club or maybe a social network, but one that's all about research. A place where a professional scientist, a university student, a high school teacher, and just a curious person who loves to tinker in their garage can all connect and work together.
And this quote really gets to the heart of it. The goal is to change our schools and universities from just places of study into places for research, places that are actually fun to be in, places you want to go back to. And the author goes even further, suggesting that this kind of community could help rebuild some of the trust and human connection that we've kind of lost in society.
So, that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. What if this actually worked? What if we were all lifelong researchers? What would our world look like? If that curious spark we have as kids wasn't something we lost, but something we nurtured our entire lives. Imagine the problems we could solve if every single one of us felt empowered to think and act like a researcher. It's a pretty powerful thought.